Hey guys, how you doing? It's Ed Barton, the social anxiety coach. So in this video, I wanted to talk about how do you go from being stiff and uptight from years and years of just being in fight or flight to being loose, happy, authentic, smiling, like, whoa, yeah, just my muscles are loose, my mind is loose, and I'm happy. That's what I want to talk about in this video. Right, now, first of all, I've just come back from my weekly yoga class. And that brings me on to the first really important point. Alongside Buddhism, which has been a major spiritual practice for me, as you know, I was a monk in Japan for a long time. And alongside Buddhism, one of the things that's had a really big impact on me in terms of internal practice has been yoga. And I got into yoga when I was a monk in Japan because I got sciatica in my left leg, which was really painful. I had something called piriformis syndrome, where the piriformis muscle in your butt cheek becomes so tight and solid, it impinges and presses on the nerve and it creates terrible pain. So I had sciatica in my left leg, had to figure out how to work on this and heal this problem. And that's how I got into yoga, and things led on, one thing led on to another. I ended up spending time in India in an ashram, and that was a really formative experience and an amazing thing, which I highly recommend to anybody. But the first step, how to get loose, you got to work with your physical body, this shell which has been armored. You've got this, what we call body armoring. It's also a term from Reichian psychology. Reich was a student of Freud. Some say his most talented student, even more so than Jung. But he talked about body armoring. So when we get used to holding these negative emotions and being defensive and in fight or flight, which is what we are all the time in social anxiety, then our muscles get tight. Like I had kyphosis. I have been working on this hunchback posture for 2 years now, from when I was in the monastery, trying to get these shoulders back. Oh, it's like using yoga to do that. Really, really helpful. So the first step is to actually work with the physical body, like somatic training. So I would recommend a stretching practice. I would recommend taking up yoga as well, to be honest. I absolutely love it. You work with the breath, so you get out of your head and you move down into your body. You become more embodied and you coordinate movements with the in-breath and the out-breath. And this has a very, very calming effect on the nervous system. This triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brake. And this just helps to calm you down. And there's a lot of scientific research about the benefits of stretching. It gets blood into the tissues and oxygen into the tissues and synovial fluid into the joints. But it can also reduce stress hormones like cortisol, help us to relax. So it can also be very good before bed if you do a relaxed kind of stretching routine, nothing too energetic. But I actually started stretching for an hour in the morning in Japan and an hour in the afternoon. And that had a big effect on me, and I just love it. Like, yoga's had a massive effect on me. It's helped me loosen up. I couldn't even get my hands up here. I couldn't do anything. So I would really recommend step one, develop a stretching practice, maybe even a yoga practice to work on loosening the body, because the chances are, if you're watching this and you've had social anxiety for a while, you're going to be very stiff and tight, actually physically stiff and tight, okay? So that's step one. Step two is how to be looser and more authentic in conversation and so on. And part of this, I believe, involves dropping into the present moment. So what we really need to do is, for example, if you're going to reply to a text message and you start creating an elaborate script in your head, just try and cut that. Tune into your gut and be like, what would I really say if I had no filter? And just try and be authentic, shoot from the hip. Sometimes for me, I often wanted to express real closeness to people, but I thought, oh no, maybe they won't accept that or like that, or it's overly familiar or overly friendly. And if that's what you feel, if you want to say, oh, I had a really good chat to you today, thanks so much, it was really good to see you again, look forward to seeing you again, just say that. Like, I think too often we hold ourselves back. If it's positive and it's coming from a place of love and sincerity and it's genuine, then it can never be wrong. So trust your gut. Try to use your intuitive sense, which is in your gut, which is in your enteric system, which is around the digestive area. And don't get up in your head too much. And just say it, man. If you feel it, just say it to this person. Hey, I'm really sorry I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to you today. It was really great chatting to you. I felt really great for our interaction. So that was lovely. Look forward to seeing you again. I wouldn't even use words like lovely or so nice or thanks so much. I thought that sounded very feminine and soft and too affectionate. So I'd try and be like cool and like, yeah, cool man, peace out, yeah. And you know, as you loosen up, you can just be honest, like, oh, thanks so much. I had a wonderful time chatting to you. You really are a lovely person. That's great. You know, I'm not saying be phony. Don't be something you're not. But if you're feeling that, just express it. It's beautiful. It lights the world up more. It's just we all need, especially in these times, these very difficult, confusing times, we need more authenticity and closeness and connection like that. So try and trust your gut. Don't script. And also this goes for, you know, a classic one for social anxiety people is when we're ending an interaction or even in an interaction, we're like, you know, okay, right, I think the conversation's coming to an end. What am I going to say? Okay, cheers, Mike. Okay, catch you later, man. You know, and we think of what we're going to say, and then because we have an idea of what we're going to say, it often comes out all wrong. So, you know, I remember there was this one time I was in a restaurant and I was getting super nervous because I could see the waitress was coming round and she was picking up the plates, and I was thinking, God, what am I going to say when she picks up my plate? And I was going to say everything was wonderful. And she said, how was everything? And I went, everything. What was, and it just completely clashed. I'd already got this preconceived idea of what I was going to say, and it didn't mesh with what she was going to say. Whereas if I wasn't scripting, if I was just sitting in the present moment, I could wait for her to take the plate and wait for her to speak. How was everything? And then really be authentic. Oh, God, that was an amazing piece of fish, which it was actually. That was an amazing piece of fish. Thank you so much. You know, be real, be authentic instead of waitress is coming. I must prepare a scripted response. You know, that's what it is. It's, you know, I talk a lot with people on calls about this. It's kind of a subtle art, very subtle, this fine line. It's almost like that line between something being a piece of doggerel and a piece of poetry, or a piece of, you know, like a copy and a piece of art. What is it that makes that? What is it that makes something a real authentic interaction rather than just a staged thing that, you know, doesn't flow at all? And it's about this authenticity, being in the moment. And this takes me back to being a Zen student in Japan, and my teacher would say, wide open, wide open. He would keep shouting this, and he meant keep your awareness completely open. When you preconceive and you pre-script, you're blocking things down into your mind. This is what's going to happen. This is what I should say. And he did not want that. He wanted you to be like a samurai on a knife's edge, ready to react in whatever way might happen. If you've ever watched soccer, World Cup final, penalty shootout, you watch how the goalkeeper is stood there. He's just poised, ready to read any little eye movement from the penalty taker or the shift of his body, and then just pounce. You know, he's like a cat on a knife's edge, ready to go. And that's how in Zen, they encourage you to be, like completely in the moment. Now, I'm not saying that when a waitress comes to get your plate in a restaurant, you need to be like, you know, ready to like chop her head off like a samurai, but just be calmly open, wait. And this is what I used to do again and again and again to cut this habit of pre-scripting. I would see myself forming this routine in my head of like saying a set piece goodbye or a set piece kind of conversational piece. And then I'd go, nope, cut that, you know, F that. Let's see what happens, see what happens, see what happens. The guy you're talking to suddenly says, oh God, actually, plumber's coming to the apartment. I've got to go now. And then you're just like, okay, yep, cool, see you later. You know, no need to go into a big thing. I remember I was in a bookshop when I lived in China, and the owner of the bookshop had taken a shine to me. He was a young guy, and I had said, this is really great, because I was really into books at that time. I was like, this is great to have this here. And then I bravely started this conversation, but then I felt super nervous because I felt now just completely pinned in. And I actually had to get to a private tutoring class because I was tutoring kids in China at that time. And time was ticking on, and he was going on and on and on. And I didn't know how to end the conversation. And all I needed to say is like, oh mate, I'm so sorry to stop you right there, but it's 4:25. I've really got to go because I'm teaching some kids at the moment. So really sorry, I hope we can continue this conversation another time. But what I did is I just stood there thinking, oh, what the hell am I going to do? What the hell am I going to do? And then just all of a sudden, like almost while he was speaking, I just went, yeah, got to bounce, and just went, because I thought, bounce would be a cool thing to say to an American guy. And he just seemed really shocked. It came out very abruptly. So this thing of being more spontaneous, more in the moment, you can do it by just trying to cut off this habit of pre-scripting. So firstly, you can use the physical relaxation, using the body, yoga, stretching to loosen up, get rid of some of that body armoring. Secondly, you can actually do this through your habits of the mind by cutting this pre-scripting and this need to set things up in a kind of scripted way. And the last point that I want to cover is basically also something which I kind of touched on there, is just be authentic. Just tune into yourself, tune into your heart, and tune into your gut. And this is not easy for you watching this probably if you haven't practiced this thing of like authenticity. How do I trust myself enough to say what I really want to say? And that's a big problem for a lot of people. And I think, rule of thumb, if it's from the heart, if it's honest, if it's really you and you want to say it and it's gonna, enrich the other person, if it's not a put down or something nasty, which, it's not good to repress your true feelings, but you can't go around offending everybody all the time, right? But if you've got something that is positive and is the real you, instead of trying to be cool or trying to be what you think you have to be like to be a man in the office or at university or wherever you have to be, just be yourself. And that's really hard. I mean, I know a lot of people watching this don't trust themselves. They don't think that the version they are, their true version, is enough to be accepted. But try and get out of your head and, like I say, use your guts. Like in Japan, this is something called the tanden. We have 3 intelligence centers in the body, which they understand this in yoga, they understand it in Qigong and all the Chinese energy arts, but people do not understand it in the West. This is your upper dantian, which is basically the third eye area, or where the pineal gland is located, right behind the brain, behind the forehead here. So this is your upper dantian, right? And then you have a lower dantian, which is 2 inches more or less below the navel. And also, what we're finding now is the heart is an energetic center. Like the heart communicates with the brain. Around 80% of messages are sent from the heart to the brain, not the brain to the heart. So the heart actually has an intelligence. This is not woo-woo new age BS. You can look it up. So the heart has an intelligence and actually releases hormones and communicates with the brain. The brain is a thinking center. And then the third center is the enteric center. And 90% of your serotonin is actually produced in the gut, not in the brain. Only 10% is produced in the spinal column and in the brain. So this is your thinking center. If it feels good, we all know that sensation of when we're getting backed into a corner and we're about to do something that we know isn't right. Maybe we're going along with the crowd and we're going to get caught up in some vandalism or something like that. It's like my experience when I was a kid, or you're going along with something you don't want to do, or you're making a career change that you know isn't you. You feel it in your gut, right? You feel that sick feeling, you know that. So how do you trust what you really want to say? Well, listen to your gut, you know what I mean? Are you being phony? And every time you don't act in alignment with your true feelings, you do chip away at your self-esteem a little bit each time. It makes you weaker. Like every time, if there's like bullying going along in the office and you're like, yeah, nice one, Karen. Yeah, you tell her. You're selling yourself out. Whereas if your gut is telling you that's not cool, then someone asks your opinion, like, well, I don't think that's cool. And that is what I'm saying. That is real authentic communication, right? It's not even a pre-scripted thing of like, I don't believe you should be talking in that way. It's just, what do you think? I don't like it. That's what my gut's telling me. It can be that simple. So just these 3 things I think is a really good place to start on, okay? Just recap those really quickly. Number 1, get a stretching and a yoga practice. Break off some of this body armoring. Just get loose and relaxed in your physical body. Number 2, stop the pre-scripting. Try and drop into the moment and let things flow more naturally. See what happens. You don't need to always lead. You can just see what happens. Let the other person hit the conversational ball to you, and then how are you going to return it? Yeah, cool, really good speaking to you. Boom, see you later. And that's it. It doesn't have to be anything special. And number 3, just try and work on trusting, dropping into your belly, dropping into your lower dantian, and trusting your intuitive sense, because this is something which is really getting lost in modern society. All this time we spend up in our upper senses, in our head, our eyes, ears stuffed full of earpods all day, eyes, glued to a screen. All of our energy is around here. None of it is going into the intuitive sense. How many times have you gone to message someone or checked an email thinking you're going to email someone, like your parent or something, and then found their email from them? That, I believe, is an intuitive sense of, oh, this enough time has elapsed, we really need to get back in contact with each other. The other person feels it too, because there's a shared intuitive sense. So anyway, just to wrap up, those 3 things, please give them a try and tell me how it goes for you. As always, please subscribe to the channel. Let's share this message more widely. Please, let's help more people with social anxiety, and I'll speak to you all really soon. Bye-bye.